shows off, where he just puts together that montage material? What are the scales for this mid lane matchup?
I would say it depends on what champions we're going to see. We might just see them have this kind of farming matchup again, kind of like Orianna Varus. Like, Faker has played a lot of Orianna in the past, so it might be something he wants to play, but let's see what the bans are going to be.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Rumble and Bard both taken off the table, so no mid lane focus quite yet, but Aimee really taking their time. What do you think would be the best champ to ban out from Faker? I think we have to see a Syndra ban.
You have to, right.
But that's again, SKT might be forced to ban Syndra unless Faker wants to pick something into that pick. We have seen it constantly banned on the red side, and I think IM would definitely be a team to like first pick Syndra too. Like, you don't want to let that go over to Faker, and it's a champion where you can hold your own, you do not need jungle pressure, but if you get it, there's a very high chance that you can pick up some kills.
Yep. One thing that we have seen consistently is teams not consistently, but we have seen teams not ban the Syndra, look to potentially try to find a counterpick. Do you think Faker is confident enough here that he could try to pull out a counterpick against the Syndra?
Well, I feel like, yes, he is confident enough to pull out a counterpick against the Syndra, but this also might have to tie into why is Blank being brought in. Because again, due to the mechanical ability of Blank over Bengi, there might be, again, room to set up the 2v2 dynamic in mid lane, and so if IM does end up, well, IM actually banned Syndra, so speak of the devil.
Yeah.
That could have been a real thought process, because Syndra, while she does have one of the biggest punish games in mid, and arguably one of the most oppressive laning phases, if she does fall behind, it's very easy to keep that pressure on her and keep setting her back more and more, because she becomes very vulnerable without her summoner spells.
Interesting spot to be, of course, Aimee.
Yeah.
Elise is up and available, as is the Nidalee. Now, not something we expected to be banned out against Bengi, but it was yesterday. Is it something that we can expect Blank to pick up if Nidalee is available?
I think we can expect Blank to pick up Nidalee if he wants to. There's other junglers that he could also pick up. Graves, who we haven't seen a lot of this world so far, but I do think that as the tournament progresses, we might see more of him, because I know that Koreans do rate him very highly. And then there's also the Kindred, but Elise definitely probably something that he would have liked to have picked. So I am taking that away as pretty good. And there's Cassio.
Absolutely an S tier jungler. But Cassio now in the mid lane, so we're talking a lot about counter picks.
And well, we finally get to see the Ryze.
Wow.
That's gonna be very interesting.
They have 60 seconds to choose this, and they have decided to both pick those picks instantly. So Cassio versus Ryze. Have either of you played this matchup? What are your thoughts here?
I think that if Cassio ends up with a lead, she's going to absolutely destroy the Ryze. Like, she will demolish Ryze with a lead. So we might see, I mean, that's probably also why they have Elise, picked Elise early, because it's one of the champions that's like, can really destroy Ryze by just having a cocoon come in there, and you're forced to take cleanse, and then it's hard to like get out of the situation. So that might be something to do with this. And then on the other hand, Faker, I think, really wants to take exhaust in this matchup, because it makes it a lot easier to duel the Ryze. It makes it easier to land your poison on top of that, and you can really just out-trade him and bully him. But the problem with that would be the same as kind of the problem Jensen had yesterday. You do not have cleanse. If Ryze lands that 2-second snare onto you, and if Elise comes to follow up, she has like probably the highest damage in the early game of the junglers, and Faker will probably fall to that, or at least needs to spend both his summoners. So it's kind of like a back and forth, and we will see what SKT does decide from the jungle, but that's kind of how it's gonna play out already.
Bang, staying constant, trying to keep the Cloud Templar trolls rolling along, and of course looks like they are thinking about the Nidalee, but additionally on the opposite side, Aimee have now locked in the Jinx. Potentially questionable Jin Zhao has been the point of a lot of criticism here, but I want to keep the focus on the jungle and mid matchups. These seem like the two that are going to affect each other the most. Is there really any way for them to mitigate the pressure that the Elise and Ryze are going to be able to throw down in the early game?
Well, one of the concerns for me right now is with the Nidalee, Cassiopeia, and the Karma. That is a lot of magic damage concentration, so I think it almost... And then if you're going to elect to pick Sivir with it, yes, she is a hard-hitting, AD carry, but I think that it basically telegraphs that Duke will probably be on an AD champion up there in top lane. And this is actually setting up to look like a potential Jace pick as well.
Interesting. Oh, there are a lot of poke elements already coming out. Nidalee, of course, a very big threat under the tower, as is the Jace. Cassio, as well as the Miasma, has been known to zone people off. It's going to be interesting to see what the final lock-ins are here. Very unique compositions. Casio hasn't been going through as much, has been seeing frequent bans. Shen, of course, as well, could affect the mid lane pretty greatly. What do you think the two teams' strategies are going to be right now from what we've seen so far?
I mean, for SKT, they kind of need to scale up with the Casio and the Sevilla, and then Karma in Italy is strong early game, so it's probably going to be centered around the Italy pick a bit more, and then seeing how much pressure she can keep up. If she has really good pressure, we can see Faker play a bit aggressive, but besides that, it's going to... Oh, they haven't locked in the Shen yet. Might go with something else.
Oh no. Oh, I don't
boy.
want, I did not want to see the pop.
I actually really like the Shen pick that we
Yeah.
almost saw.
I did not want to see Poppy. Amazing J play Poppy a lot in solo queue. I'm not a very big fan of Poppy right now. I think there's just so many other available top laners that are just better.
So what, I mean, what does Poppy do against this team? Frequently we talk about using her as a way to deny engage, but it feels like she's not going to be able to block any dashes against this team so far, so really outside of the Nidalee,
Yeah.
what is the strength of Poppy in this composition?
For this, I think she is kind of like the engage. Like, she needs to get a good flank on one of SKT, like split the team up, and then you can fight. Maybe Ryze ultimate would be a good follow-up. If Poppy ultimates a couple of people away and you follow up with Ryze ultimating his team into the people that split off, it could be really good, but it's definitely something that would be pretty difficult to execute.
Avoid this getting some strict coaching about what he needs to be doing in the early game. You know, Kahoma also similarly passionate in his voicing to the team. So looking at these two compositions, we're going to talk about the mid lane a lot. I want to know how this top lane is going to go as well, because Trundle, not someone we always see on the top side of the map, up against Poppy. This feels like a ghost of meta's past, almost. What do you expect out of this top lane matchup?
Yeah, I mean, the Ghost of Meta's Past is pretty funny because this is a matchup that we saw many patches ago. I think that in the top lane, Duke is probably just going to have an edge, and then I think when you entertain the jungle component, because SK Telecom is on the red side, Nidalee has a lot more potency for counter ganks and match ganks against Elise, and Trundle's just going to be unable to scale up.
It's going to be interesting, of course, to see how that unfolds. But, of course, this is the mid lane stream. In fact, this is the Faker stream. So we'll be keeping our eyes on him, on that Casio, see if he can build up that lead that we talked about, see if he can potentially use that lead to just crush some face. You talked about it. If he gets ahead, he should be able to dominate this mid lane. But this just in, Bamey has picked SKT Rise. So a little bit of, I like this. Kind of calling Faker out a little bit here. If he is able to win, that would be a pretty big showing for him overall. But you got to imagine that's going to be a pretty big challenge, because Faker has been, you know, showing off, honestly, in that matchup against Jensen, and has been having a phenomenal performance so far.
And I'm really happy that he decided to go with the cleanse. For a second, I thought he was going to go with Ghost into the game, and I did not like that summoner pick up at all. But he has changed to cleanse, so he knows that the CC is very dangerous from the Ryze and the Elise.
So let's talk about the early lane phase here. We talked about trading in our previous matchup, and I want to hit that again. Ryze versus Casio, are they both just going to be focused on getting the wave control here? How do they trade with each other in the early levels?
Ooh. Well, Faker is going to have... It really depends on the first minion wave. The first minion wave is really crucial to dictating the pace of the laning phase. Because if Faker can manage to manipulate the wave in a way that enables him to get a lot of different angles of approach onto Ryze, then he can end up just trading out Bamey really early and applying a lot of pressure to Elise, because Elise is going to be needed to relieve that pressure. And then if Blank recognizes that, then he can just farm relative to mid and get ahead in camps.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing about this matchup is that Ryze E actually has a really low cooldown too. So we're probably going to see Faker kind of stay away from his own minions so he doesn't get hit by the Ryze AoE, and then Ryze is going to push really hard if he keeps stacking that up all the time. And that's kind of the way for Ryze to get control in this lane, I think. And for Casio, I think Faker is going to play really aggressive level 1 and just spam E as long as he's not on top of his own creeps. It's either that or he's just going to get pushed in by Ryze and get a few levels and then maybe play a bit aggressive from there. Because Ryze does have the stronger push at level 1 if he keeps stacking up that E. Oh, Faker is taking the AoE damage. The disrespect. The disrespect again. This is not what he should be doing. At least he does that E damage, and Ryze is already pushing, so Faker kind of lost his chance to play aggressive, and he took some more AoE damage.
I'll take a lot of poke here. Is starting to get pressured in.
Yeah, and Ryze is hitting every CS because Faker just allows him to do it. I think he could have played a bit more aggressive, stay away from his own minions, but this is okay too. He isn't dead yet, so now Ryze is gonna get the level up. It's obviously very strong. You can see the pressure coming in, and
nice
he missed that.
sidestep.
Damn.
I mean, good sidestep from Faker to make the most of that exchange there.
Yeah, it's definitely good for him to like Ryze walked really far up and he took a lot of damage, and Faker is gonna be aggressive at level 2.
Baby. It's not what you want. Flash already trade. Oh, Deathfire touch.
Nope, it's not gonna be enough.
All right, pulls out there. Faker had to burn his entire mana pool, but Ellis, can you run me through exactly how that happened? What happened there?
I think Beimei just wasn't respecting the level up from Faker. Also, when Beimei was trying to trade against Faker just a second before, he was actually taking a lot of minion aggro. Now, if he was able to back off and reset the lane, it would have been an advantageous trade because he has a refillable pot versus Faker's potions, if you're just looking at it from a gold perspective. But now, the problem is that Ryze recalls, and he just gets a Sapphire Crystal, whereas Faker's recall is going to contain the tier. So already, we're 3 minutes into the game, Faker's going to have a superior recall, level advantage, and gold advantage.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Beimei actually had a really good laning phase if he did not take all that minion damage and basically get ult in by Faker.
well, there's a Twitter question I want to bring up as we're watching Beimei just get absolutely zoned off the wave here. At Moon Rabby asks, what are the key warding positions in mid for a mobile mid lane such as Cassiopeia, Anivia, Syndra, I guess we could even say in this case Ryze. Where does Beimei need to ward right now, or Faker in this case, to make sure he does not get the jungle pressure?
Oh, we have some jungles fighting. Blank used flash. Well, still has flash. But yeah, the warding positions, I think you need to combo, like you need to communicate with your jungler of, hey, where's the jungler around? Like, what side is he gonna be on? A lot of junglers is able to predict that, and then you can ward accordingly. Besides that, you have the obvious spots. It's just right next to mid, especially if the lane is in the middle of the lane. You just walk the lane quickly out to the side, and then you walk back mid, so you don't have to blind face check anything. Because if you face check a jungler early game that has red buff, it's gonna be a pain for you.
I like that. It's going to be a pain. That's I think the light way of saying it. Very frequently, you're blowing something. Summoner spells. Maybe you get the fast recall from the early death. But Beimei now a little bit in a tough spot. We have that 11 CS advantage for Faker.
So even though he has a deficit in CS, okay, it's not really too big of a deficit. The biggest thing he lost out on was the first cannon minion, where he needed to base, and then his cannon minion actually died before he got back to lane, so he lost a bunch of experience, and that's what he should be careful of.
Oh, Faker chaining the CC early on the cleanse, and he's going to go down here.
Blank might be able to return this.
Oh no. That looked like...
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, is he going to get it? They're going to go? Are they going to try to turn it?
Oh,
2 for
really
1.
bad.
Yeah. What happened there? Faker, he had the cleanse. What went wrong?
Well, something I wanted to say was, you notice how Faker was positioning himself to a certain angle inside of the lane. That was because Blank goes into the left side jungle, and he's like, okay, Elise is not here. Something's going on. But he ends up cleansing too early, as you can see, and he ends up getting locked up. And that's why you need to take cleanse versus a double snare or double CC mid jungle duo. Blank able to salvage 1 kill. But I don't think it's worth it in the end, because a kill and an assist on Ryze is pretty scary.
Yeah, now we see he comes back with the catalyst as well as the tier. So Beimei right back into this lane.
I also think that Faker honestly just messed up really hard, because he saw Elise, 100% sure the tower shows that Elise is definitely walking in mid, but he did not react to it before Elise actually flash cocooned, and he failed his cleanse, which is another indicator of like, okay, he didn't actually see Elise walk there. He might have had his map too far on right side of the map, if that makes sense. And that just results in him basically dying for no reason. He could have walked away. He had the advantage. He already won the trade. He basically went out of mana. Like, he should just have backed away, honestly. And then if a Voidless would have kept chasing, then Blank would have been there to follow up, and they would definitely have won that 2v2.
Maybe not exactly where he wanted to be. Faker, kind of a rare mistake from him not to respect the potential jungle pressure.
It actually happens fairly often. He does escape from a lot of ganks, but it's also because he plays really, really cocky. Like, you see him constantly go trade. Like, obviously, it's really good to trade a lot, but sometimes you also have to respect the that the enemy jungler can be there. And he got his flash up again, so he's a bit safe, while Ryze flash is still on cooldown.
Maybe a potential for Blank to repeat an appearance in the mid lane. Does have the ult as well, the Petrifying Gaze, but interesting. Not quite what we expected as far as how this lane would play out, especially after Baby got so aggressive there and really felt like he gave up a lot of the early lane advantage after he backed and bought just that Fairy Charm. But now he's going to grab this blue buff, come right back into the mid lane. So Faker, or is he just going to move towards that Abyssal Scepter where we see the standard build path from Ryze now coming in?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably gonna finish his Negaton Cloak, almost for sure, because it's only 270 gold and there's absolutely no reason not to finish that item. After that, you could see him go for Lost Chapter, get a bit bigger mana pool, get a bit more sustain so he can just stay in lane and stack up that tier. So I don't think it's likely we'll see just a straight up Abyssal Scepter rush from him.
Here comes Road though. Good miasma from Faker.
Yeah. There's no way Road can really play aggressive onto Faker in that case. He has ulti and he has cleanse, so he would just get chunked out really hard.
And I think that Faker's movement in this laning phase has been pretty on point. His reaction to that one gank was a little bit slow, but I think that the angles that he chooses to continuously take in the lane and when he chooses to stop CSing the wave has been really on point this match.
Yeah, despite the fact that he did kind of fumble and go back into trade with the Ryze on that first play, he was in the right spot in the lane to avoid the Elise gank. The communication is clearly there between the jungler and the mid laner, but maybe a little overconfident. You can see now in that picture-in-picture a lot of action on the bottom side, and Faker is on the way down.
Faster than Ryze, that's really good.
Yep, and
What go?
Oh, there's the ult. The follow-up.
Yeah,
Talked about it.
He knows that Elise does not flash because she ganks mid lane, so it's a good roam. But this also allows Ryze to get kind of a lead. Like, Faker did get an assist, but what he loses in mid is an entire minion wave, and it's actually not worth for him because he also wasted his flash. Like, wasted, you can argue that, but I will call it that. So now he's actually behind an experience where he could probably have been even, or maybe even a bit ahead. So I don't necessarily think it's a good roam, but I mean, you can always argue that it's okay.
well, I think that the roam, while he does take a deficit in the mid lane, he does guarantee that SK Telecom gets the first blood tower gold on the Bane. And that's really, really big.
Yep, I agree. That is really good.
Yeah, and of course Blank is now snowballing as well, and you mentioned the choice between Blank and Bangy. Blank gonna play the more the more mechanically intensive junglers. And he's already got those 2 kills. Yes, he did give up his own life in the mid lane, but now they're funneling gold into him. I mean, you can see he's well ahead of schedule in terms of that jungle itemization, as well as being insanely far ahead in farm here for a jungler overall.
One of the things I'm curious to see now if SK Telecom is going to do it is Ryze is going to be blueless for a while, and Elise's mana sustain are not going to really be there. So if they rotate Bang and Wolf into mid lane, it can get a little bit problematic for Ryze. Immediately after, you would just have Bang shove the bottom wave in and then go mid. And then there's even some interesting rotations that they could actually do with Duke, given that he's really comfortable up there in top lane if you look at the CS deficit. Also the fact that he even has calls, so that's just adding salt to the wound.
Yeah, so you're just saying if they move their duo to the mid lane and pressure out, there's just no way for Ryze to maintain the wave clear there, and that they would be able to get a bigger advantage out of that.
Ryze does need to move a bit close to the minion wave, so he can wave clear a tiny bit, but he's gonna get chunked out if he wants to wave clear. I also think it is good for Bang and Wolves to rotate mid, but they need to be able to also deny Jinx some farm in the bot lane. So if they can just constantly keep harassing the bot lane and Faker is able to roam first every time, I actually feel like it's a bigger advantage for them because they will not deny Faker of experience and gold. And that's really big on Cashew. You don't really want to deny her. So if you want to have Sivir mid, I think Cashew should go on a side lane, but she's already building magic resistance, so it doesn't make much sense to go anywhere else but mid.
Yep, that would certainly be counterintuitive.
Yeah, interesting here. SKT, we did see them lose a lot of early kills, but they are still very much in the lead off of that tower first blood. They also have the Air Drake, and it seems like CS leads pretty much across the board, 94 to 79, 55 to 35. I mean, the numbers just very clearly in their favor. Is this just SKT being more comfortable in each of their individual lanes?
I think that it is. The first blood tower gold I think was really big for SK Telecom because it gives Bang and Wolf a lot more breathing room, and This is definitely going to play into Nidalee because the more open that the map is, the more freedom Nidalee has over Elise. Because Elise's routes become way more predictable when Wolf is able to freely get into Elise's red side jungle and get deep wards. And when you know where an Elise is coming from, it's really, really bad. Whereas Nidalee, she can hop all around walls and stuff, and you never quite know where she's coming from.
So a lot more flexibility in the pathing there, and kind of curious to see where Blank goes next as the... looks like he's going to go up top and kill Amazing J. We didn't get a picture-in-picture on that one, but that's okay. You can assume that Amazing J tried his hardest not to die in that scenario. Now, I want to jump onto a Twitter question real quick. At Aisha Teeler asks, I apologize for butchering your name once again. We'll butcher them all, to be fair. But what is the optimal Ryze build? Can you skip Rod of Ages, and is Rylai's mandatory?
I have seen a lot of different stuff where I think it just comes down to what the player really prefers.
Going to see a bit of aggression from Baby here. He's going to get one.
Really good from
We'll hold that thought on the build path and talk about the fight that's coming. They're just going to blink out. Nice from Aime. It is the 1-for-1 trade in the end. Both mid laners grabbing a kill.
This is actually really good for Aime, even though they traded the Baby Summoners for Nidalee Summoners and go 1-1, because Jinx is still bot side and she was not involved in the fight at all. And it just like kind of gets some breathing room. Faker's almost out of mana. Obviously, he has blue, so he's not really out of mana. You're never gonna go out of mana when you have blue buff and Cashier. So it's just some nice breathing room. Baby gets some more gold onto Ryze, it's really good. But for the item builds, I have seen a lot of people go for just tier and then going into Lost Chapter for the extra mana pool. And it makes him a bit less tanky, but I have a bunch more damage basically. So Baby opting into getting a tiny bit more tanky.
One of the Korean variants, I'll just bring it up, is that because Morellonomicon now gives flat mana as well, it gives you almost the same amount of mana that Roa would give you, and then obviously it gives you the CDR and the flat AP. Some of the Korean variations is Morellonomicon into Seraph's Embrace with Rylai's, and then Rylai's HP makes up for the Roa's missing HP, but there's multiple build paths on Ryze that are viable.
How important do you think the Rylai slow is in Ryze's kit? Is that something crucial to the build, or is it something that's kind of just situational depending on the team?
I think the Rylai's is always good, but I don't think he will have a problem not being able to keep up with Sivir. And it's because he has Ghost, and then he has his own movement speed buff from his Q, so he doesn't necessarily need to slow people. And then Jinx have the resets, so they will always be able to keep up as long as they get kills and assists. But I'm personally a pretty big fan of Rylai's, just so you can control people a bit more.
Interesting to see. So flexibility there in the Ryze build path for sure. And now we're seeing Faker did take that blue buff away from Baimi. Baimi not running out of mana too much here. Maybe one of the perks of all this early mana itemization. But SKT still seem very much in control of the map. They're consistently getting this deep vision down that you talked about. Wolf seems to be threatening on the bottom side. Is there anything else that Faker needs to be doing, or is he just totally clear to keep pushing in this mid lane?
Faker's doing a really good job so far. Because all he's doing is just trying to harass Baimi as much as possible. You haven't really seen it pay off yet, but it's just to keep pressure onto him all the time, and that's a really good thing to do. And you also saw him go straight into Abyssal Scepter, more so than opting for Lost Chapter. I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with it, but it's definitely a bit more damage. It's because Abyssal Scepter is scaling now, so the more levels you have, the more magic resistance is gonna reduce, so most people tend to get it a bit later and just be able to sustain the mana a bit more.
Well, right now,
besides that, I think SKT has a really interesting strategy whenever it comes to playing around Faker, because you always saw Blank invade the Elise, so you always saw him be around mid. If Blank wasn't around, then it was Wolf being around with some extra vision, and that's obviously also something to do with the first tower that's going down, that they can send their support a bit more around mid and just have Sivir wave clear alone. But they always make sure to have someone around Faker so he can constantly play aggressive, and I really like that back.
interesting too, you saw a lot of pings coming down. Faker looked for a moment there to be headed to the bottom side where Bang and Wolf are going to come in mid, but it looks like they decided to change their lane assignments at the last second. Do you think that this is the point in the game where Bang and Wolf need to be in the mid lane, or is Faker just comfortable to keep sitting here?
I think Faker is basically completely content to just keep sitting in the mid lane. Bang is probably just going to shove this final wave in that we see him contesting with Jinx on the minimap. really quickly, and Nidalee is going to continue to get intel on the red side jungle of Elise. So now what this is saying is they know exactly where Elise is for about the next 2 minutes. And so when you have that type of information available to you post-recall, it's really easy to send certain champions to certain lanes. Now after Faker recalls, we can probably expect all 4 of them to unite in mid, and then maybe they break off 3 people into top lane just to bulldoze down that top tier 1 tower.
And that would build a pretty substantial lead, and they already have one. 3.5k. We're only 17 minutes into the game, as well as both of those early dragons. Looking off on the opposite side, I know this is the Faker stream, but talking briefly about Bamey, I mean, what can this guy do to stop SKT from just running him over? It seems like they have such a significant lead so early on.
Right now, Bamey is doing a really good job of just keeping up in farm. He's gonna become a monster, I think. I mean, right now there isn't really a whole lot of things that he necessarily needs to be doing. He just needs to keep up with Faker, keep wave playing. On the other hand, I think the reason we haven't seen Sivir rotate to mid, which is usually what you want to do with Sivir so she's safe, is because that they probably don't feel like she's safe versus Ryze. It's really easy to land that 2-second snare. So Faker's job in this game is kind of to just follow the Ryze. So I think whenever we're gonna see some lane swaps happen, now you saw the bot lane go top, but besides that, they're just trying to match each other, and then whenever Ryze goes on a side lane, which probably will happen considering that Trundle doesn't really have any magic resistance, so Ryze could bully that out. It's Faker's job to kind of follow the Ryze around the map, and then Sivir can keep getting a lead versus Jinx and just like basically walk around the map faster than her, because she's always gonna get pushed in, and Sivir is just a really fast champion around the map in general, especially with Karma. So it's just gonna be rotations, and then Faker following Bamey and trying to play aggressive all the time.
Yep. Definitely right now, SK Telecom's team composition, while it does have some scaling components inside of it, it is very tempo-based. It has the ability to just, if it gains tempo and it gains initiative over the opponent, it wants to keep doing that and just keep blitzing around the map and forcing them to come to you, because then you're going to be able to maximize your gains all across of the map. So the issue right now for IM is that they need to find a way to weather this storm and then try to take a team fight in the mid game. But
doesn't look like they're going to get the opportunity, because Faker is already on top there. Armor speed up goes in, decent disengage, but that's a lot of cooldowns burned already on the side of IMA, and once again this blue buff just goes right over to the side of SKT, although this time it looks like over to Bang, he does steal that one away.
Yeah, I really like how SKT is playing. They're really trying to like fight IM for every single opportunity they can get. It's like they see someone out of position, they instantly just use their summoners, try to get on top of them, they know they're faster, and then you see Faker flash ulting, and they really just try to like get these advantages and just pressure IM. And I think that's exactly what they should be doing, and I really love seeing it.
Yep. Looks like they're probably going to get this tower right here. No. Alright, it's going to live.
It's going to fall eventually. It's not too big of a deal. They shouldn't
One
risk dying.
Right.
What IM should be looking for is probably try to get a pick somehow. Now they know Faker doesn't have any summoners, so SKT needs to be a bit more careful around mid. Maybe, I mean, it's hard to ward more than they have already done, but at least they need to keep track of where every one of IM is, because that's kind of their time to relieve pressure, is if they can get a pick of someone from SKT.
Well, and speaking of keeping track of those members, we have a Twitter question from @SefBenamerito. Once again, butchered, probably. #SKTCS, how can you effectively predict where the enemy jungler will be? Let's talk about early game. You talked a lot about having knowledge of the Elise pathing or using a jungler to communicate. How do you know where the jungler is going to be?
I would say, I mean, when you're a pro player, you play the game all the time. You're gonna and it's basically the same junglers you play against in every game in competitive. You're gonna figure out a path that they're always gonna take. Like, you can look at previous film tape of like, okay, the jungler is likely to do this, likely to gank mid at level 3, likely at level 2, or whatever the specific jungler is doing. And especially with your own jungler, imagine if you play jungle for like 12 plus games a day, you're gonna know where the enemy jungle is, so you're gonna have a rough feeling about it. So it just comes from experience, and to relate it to maybe each individual solo queue game, it's a lot harder because you might not play as much, anything, but it's mainly just about finding knowledge about the game. Like, if you really want to you will always like be able to know where the enemy jungler can be if you just do enough research.
Interesting. So LS, you are a proponent, I know, of coaching in so many situations, and I know you're pretty good at tracking jungle pathing. Are there any clues or hints that players can use in a solo queue game to like keep aware of where an enemy jungler might be?
I mean, I can just give you, I guess, one example. If, for instance, you see an Elise in top lane and you click on her and she has a Gromp buff that's about to fade, and she just finished a gank and she's recalling. Well, you know that because she had the Gromp buff doesn't exist. It's unlikely that she has wolves. You can hit tab and see blue's not coming up, so that only leaves her with one option or one side of the map that she has to go to. So using no information as information, or using available information that tells you what isn't actually the fog of war, it basically forces her to go to a certain area, and it tells you exactly where she's going.
Because she always wants to go to the side that has more camps to continue to clear. By the same definition, could you just look at any of the jungle buffs she has to kind of know where she will not be, because that clamp has already been cleared?
Anytime a jungler pops up on the minimap or something, it's always good to try to just get a quick little click on them and check and see if they have any buffs, and then just take a look at the avatar and how much time's remaining, and it tells you when that camp respawns.
That's also for solo queue, especially at level 1 for mid laners. You can just go look at the bot lane HP, go look at the top laner's HP. Yeah. If they're missing a bit of HP level 1, you know it's very likely that the jungler started there. No one in solo queue is gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna tank the Grump for a few hits and be like, I'm gonna fake, like, make them think that my jungler started topside. That's not very likely to happen in solo queue. So.
Yeah, I want to point out what Froggen just said, actually. I believe CLG yesterday, Darshan intentionally took damage from golems yesterday to basically play a mind game against the enemy jungler, making them think that the jungler started top.
Yeah, some interesting kind of next level plays. I think we saw that in some playoff games as well. Actually, specifically IMA versus RNG. We saw an Echo fake leash a Gromp. Or, sorry, a bot lane fake leash a Gromp and set up for an interesting pathing option for a Voidless. So those mind games are there, kind of preying. We just talked about kind of being able to predict based on that, and obviously if your opponents know that too, you get into this whole level of mind games. It's just even more complicated. But now looking at the game, of course, we're seeing SKT continue to take control of the map. They've extended their gold lead to 7K. They've taken all the outer towers, and honestly, it looks like IMA are kind of just falling apart here. Faker just seems like he's going to be able to continue split pushing.
Yeah. One of the... Okay, sorry. One of the issues that I have with IM's team composition is the Poppy. This is just a comfort pick for Amazing J. I don't think the champion offers enough in the current meta, and I think that it's actually doing a disservice to IM the longer that this game goes on. Because while SK Telecom, they do have scaling champions, they do still have a blitz component where their team comp is clearly stronger at certain parts of the mid game and late game, and then vulnerable at certain parts around certain itemization periods. And because of the top laner for IM, I feel like they can't take advantage of that as well as they could with other champions.
Potentially a very vulnerable pick here. I mean, if I may continue to get this Rise scaling, continue to get this Jinx scaling, do they have some paths to come back into the game despite maybe the weakness that the Poppy provides?
I think if they can get the right, I think the real good opportunity is really if Poppy ultimates someone away and then Rise can make his entire team like kind of group on the people that split, and then you can get a couple of resets going, or Rise can run someone down. I think that's kind of the opportunity to really do something, because they do have very strong champions. They're kind of finishing their power spikes. But as the game goes on and SKT isn't really losing out anywhere, and they just try to get strong on every single champion because they know they have pressure in every lane they go to. Like Faker's gonna beat Rise, Nidalee is gonna beat Elise, Duke is gonna beat the Poppy, and then bot lane is gonna win. You see they're up like 60 CS in bot lane. It's just like, as long as SKT rotates smart and they pressure at the same time, there isn't a whole lot of things that IM can do other than maybe get a pick.
I think a lot of it comes down to right now is the Braum and the Elise. Also, I guess the Rise to a certain extent, but definitely they can try to fight for vision around certain brushes around Baron or inside of their blue side jungle, and try to wait for Wolf or someone to face check the brush and try to make a pick using Braum's Q and Elise's Cocoon. But I think that can actually be shut down if Faker just actually gets a blue trinket right now. Because I feel like the longer this game goes, IM's only hope is going to be a pick, and a blue trinket would aid a lot in shutting that down.
Yeah. I think the reason he is not going for blue trinket is that he's on a side lane and splitting, and if you're splitting on a side lane, it's more valuable to have the 2 wards coming out of the warding totem. So whenever he wants to group, I do think he should be having a blue trinket, but we might not see that for a while.
Interesting spot to be, but unfortunately for Aime, I mean, CS discrepancies are getting larger. The tower advantage 3-0. Double Cloud Drake as well. Not obviously our favorite Drake, but is going to make it that much easier for them to move. And now SKT are just going to force this Baron.
Yeah, and this is a blue buff Cassiopeia, so you can actually just 2-man Baron. So Aime probably has no idea that this is going on, and barring
they know now,
yeah.
but too little too late. Ult comes in. Amazing J's here as well. Interesting decision. You can watch Faker. Ooh, nice
he
movement.
missed the flashy. I don't know why he would even go for the flashy. You know Faker has cleanse. He's just going to cleanse. It's totally not worth it. Just use your ultimate, knock some people away, wait for your team to follow up if you actually want to fight. That might be some miscommunication from IM there, but besides that, I really like what SKT did. They know that IM only has 1 blue trinket, and they just go ahead and start Baron. And if IM blue trinkets, they're probably gonna back away, and then SKT knows they have no blue trinket, and they can freely get fixed or force Baron again without IM knowing. So I really like the way that they're pressuring the map in this game.
One of the things that they're doing right here, and it's very visible that obviously they're going to get this tower, but what you may notice is that Nidalee or Cassio is not really adding too much value because IM is already too low on HP. Had Faker or Blank actually just completely ignored the tier 2 mid tower and ran immediately down to bottom, it opens up 2 more rotation steps that they could have taken. They could have raised the bottom tier 2 turret, fallen back, eaten the Drake, and then fallen back and recalled, and then all of the lanes will pulsate into SK Telecom, thus forcing IM to fight them.
Interesting spot to be. Now taking a different alternative path here, so we're going to take a look at this replay one more time, but you can see this is pretty much just disaster striking for IM.
Yeah, Amazing J teleports in, but it was already too little too late. They probably thought maybe they could try to do something, but that's not going to happen, as Froggen pointed out, because Faker just has cleanse, so you can't really do anything with Poppy there, and I think that if the teleport completes, you're always giving up kills there.
Interesting spot to be.
I think he should just be creative with his Poppy usage right now. Like, he should be using his ultimate to knock people away. What he did was like, I'm gonna flash EU into a wall, and you have cleanse, and you can freely cleanse, and then I'm gonna use my ultimate. Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. He needs to be more creative if he wants to make this Poppy pick really work.
Amazing J, of course, wasn't the strongest player last year on the world stages, showing to struggle in these moments now against SKT, and SKT 12k gold lead at 29 minutes, and I can't imagine it's going to be too hard for them to close out from here. LS, you talked about having the waves come forward. Doesn't look like SKT are going to be able to force IMA to fight them, but it does look like Faker is going to be able to force down this tower.
Yeah, they're going to be able to execute a 1-0-4 right here pretty standardly. There's no chance to oppose Trundle up in the top lane. Duke is just way too big. He's way too scaled at this point in the game, and Poppy just doesn't do anything to him. And even if IM tries to bring the fight to SKT right here, the Karma shields are too big. Karma can disengage easily, and then if something really does happen, they can always just call in the teleport from Duke.
And now Faker's moving to the mid lane as well, maybe just looking to throw down pressure. Vision as well. Kind of a grim fate here for IM.
The good thing about having Ryze against the Trundle is that he can actually match him, and Ryze ultimate would roughly be able to reach towards bot lane, so even if Duke decides to TP down bot, it will be a 5v5 fight. And if Amazing J was top instead of the Ryze, you would just see Trundle walk past the Poppy, just go slap the inhibitor of the tower, and he basically doesn't have to care about Amazing J. This way, it forces SKT to... It's a bit harder for SKT to actually do something, but, I mean, obviously it looks very easy.
So, it's not the worst possible scenario. Ryze can bully the Trundle at least a little bit despite the sustain there. Will not just let him get the free hits, but unfortunately SKT just leading out IMA here, taking that second inhibitor now, maybe looking to get their second inhibitor. Second inhibitor tower's down. Bang, really far up though.
Bang did get locked up, but
oh, baby.
SK Telecom is just too far ahead.
Yeah, this is, at this point, every single member has a lead. It's not just the Faker stream, it's the SK Telecom stream, and they are cleaning up.
Also to point out something specific, is like Ryze versus Cashew, they got the tier roughly the same time. Ryze finished the tier way later than Cassiopeia, so that's also some matchup difference right there. Is Faker was able to spam out a lot more abilities than BayMe, and he got an earlier power spike, regardless of BayMe being a bit ahead in CS.
At the end of the day, I mean, here it is, a quick, clean closeout from SKT. One small advantage. I mean, it felt like IMA maybe had a lead for a split second there after that first 2-for-1 exchange going over to the fair favor, but after that, it was SKT in the lead 100%, and you know, this is why it's the Faker stream. We expect this man to get ahead, and he does it time and time again, and it was the same story for bottom lane as well as top lane. And, you know, skeptical about Blank coming in over Bengi, but he did put on a good performance today.
Yeah, he didn't do too bad at all. I think that Faker's roam to the bottom, willing to sacrifice an advantage in mid lane in order to get Bang and his team ahead via the First Blood Tower was really, really good. And then I think that his lane management, almost at all points, was just really, really, really good. He was always standing in the right spots in his lane relative to where Elise could be, or how Ryze would like to approach or assist a gank, and I think he played really well.
Close. I
brain.
think that would be an appropriate use of the expletive, but probably not for broadcast. But you can say it at home if you want. We're not going to judge you. It was a good lane. It was a solid laning phase from Faker, and I think you're right. I mean, I feels like that one misstep, I think, is the only thing we can really shine a light on, is when he stepped forward, did not time the cleanse appropriately, but outside of that, I mean, he just scratched the laning phase.
He played very well, but I think it's also an SKT thing. You saw them go into the game, and they have this, okay, I want to pressure as much as possible, and every single lane was able to do it, and that enables everyone to kind of play aggressive. So you saw every single fight they could possibly take. SKT, all they had to do was just move people to the area, and then just take the fights. And that's also why like Faker roamed down before Ryze. It's really, really good. Ryze has his ultimate, so he can catch like close a distance. He has his ghost too, so he can close a distance faster. But Faker was still just first. They knew all he had to do was just be in the area, and they're stronger in every single lane and in the jungle. So it's really well played from SKT, and I really like what I saw.
I mean, it was really, really systematic. The Ryze coming out as a potential answer to the Cassio didn't feel like it worked out too well. Is Cassio another one of those champions that you feel like has to be banned out and pick and ban?
Not necessarily. You have seen a lot of Cassiopeia take some losses, but it's definitely a champion where everyone values her just really high because she has insane damage output, and she just has a really strong laning phase, and she always has some kind of impact in the game. There's specific counterpicks you could do to the Cassio that just provides you with some different stats. You've seen Victor work out pretty well so far. Ryze actually wasn't too bad. Considered how he lost at level 2, he actually got back into the lane really well. And he didn't like crumple. It was just like, okay, he can actually still keep up in CS. This is really good. The pick isn't necessarily bad. But what I'm lacking from this is not necessarily Cassio is too strong. It's just that IM didn't seem to have a real strategy of what they wanted to do. It was like, oh, okay, we're going to pick these champions. And then there was no strategic happening.
Yeah,
like there was nothing.
Just looked completely clueless running around the jungle. The SK Telecom was like playing with map hacks that game. They always knew where Elise was.
I mean, it was a rough spot for IMA, and we'll have to see how they adjust their draft moving forward. But SKT with another confident win. But that's going to do it for us for this game. Coming up next on the Player Experience stream, we welcome Nori back to the broadcast to track Trashy and Svenskaren as they prowl through the jungle. But for now, we're going to send you to a quick break as we circle back here for Game 5.
Towards the bottom side, but SKT immediately goes for the invade, and they're going to set up a dive down here in the bottom side, and this is where it all goes downhill for IMA. That you're just going to see the Sivir just harass out Jinx, and once this chunk happens, it spells disaster for IMA.
I mean, this is following what was, you know, disaster for SKT to a degree in the mid lane, but they recover from that, make map movements in order to get themselves back into the game.
And they played around pressure really smartly. As Crumbs was saying, before this, they saw the support in the top lane, so they invaded Raid's jungle. They took extra objectives. It was never about focusing on one thing. It was playing off information. It was showing solid, succinct communication. And that's one of the best teams in the world playing at their best.
And if we go all the way back to Champion Select, SKT also doing their research, they're able to get the Nidalee out of it with a bunch of winning lanes, so they have that pressure right off the bat and easily transfer it into a pretty quick win.
Just look at that goal difference over time. That is pretty much a perfect snowball, and you cannot get a better curve than that. 31:53, an incredibly quick time, just such a solid performance by them.
Yeah, I mean, I think even in those times where you're seeing the game feels like it stalls out because SKT's not